Bring out the talent. Bring out the talent.
Bring out the talent.
Welcome to Bring Out the Talent, a podcast featuring learning and development experts discussing innovative approaches and industry insights. Tune in to hear our talent help develop yours. Now here are your hosts, TTA's CEO and President Maria Melfa and Talent Manager Jocelyn Allen.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi, Maria. How you doing this morning? It's not the morning. Why did I say that?
Well, because our
2:08
guest
in the afternoon Eastern time. Who am I?
Because our guest, who's coming from a different
Vegas.
time
Yeah,
zone,
see,
just
nope,
said
that
good
is why I
morning.
do it. Yep, it's because
Yes.
I am about
Exactly.
the inclusion of time throughout the United States. So
Absolutely.
that's why I did it.
But
Yep, thank you.
100%. Yes.
Thank you for reminding me. I appreciate you.
Yes. But the days gone by.
Something that happens a lot because I'm on the West Coast, so it's morning here.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. Yeah, that's what we're
exactly.
saying.
People on the East Coast read in Central Time, and so I say good morning, and they're like, "It's 2 PM."
Sorry. Sorry about
Morning,
that.
guys.
I know. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what does resilience really look like when no one's watching? Is it something we're born with or something we're forced to build through adversity? How can we tell if we're truly growing through challenges or are we just surviving them? Can you be resilient without first facing failure? And how much does the story you tell yourself shape your ability to keep going, especially when the outcome is still uncertain? Do you know those answers, Jocelyn?
I remember the first question you asked me because I have ADHD. So I would
Okay.
only answer the first one. But no, the point is no, I don't. You have to dig
Yes.
deep to get the answers to those
Okay.
questions.
Well, in this episode of Bring Out the Talent, we welcome Connor Fields. Thank you for having a nice, easy name to pronounce because I tend not to be good at that. Connor is an Olympic gold medalist, keynote speaker, and thought leader on mental toughness. As the first American to win Olympic gold in BMX racing, how cool is that? Connor's journey from a young, determined rider to standing on top of the podium is nothing short of extraordinary. His career is marked by incredible highs, like his triumph victory at the 2016 Rio Olympics, and formidable challenges, including a life-altering crash at the Tokyo Games that reshaped his path. We'll dive into Connor's inspiring story, exploring how he developed the resilience, focus, and mental toughness needed to perform under immense pressure. So whether you're facing professional challenges, striving for peak performance, or simply looking for motivation to push through tough times, this episode is packed with powerful insights and actionable takeaways. From the highest moments to the hardest falls, Connor shares what it really means to fall, rise, and keep riding forward. Welcome, Connor.
Well, thank you. Quite introduction. I don't know how I followed that up.
Well, you
Joke's
were
on you.
actually-
The episode's over. No.
So you actually were in 3 Olympics.
I was, yes. London, Rio, and Tokyo. 3 very different Olympics. Europe, South America, Asia. One of them was COVID. We had very wide variety.
You don't think of things like that too, because you think from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, an Olympics, you go every year, right? Kind of thing. So it's very cool that you have the perspective that you do, and that it's a huge part of your story and resilience. So, like Maria said, we're thrilled to have you here and learn more about your story from Olympic golds to keynote gold, right? 2 different types of stage, carrying the torch in both manners. Tell us about your incredibly inspiring story and kind of like what led you to where you are today. More about the Connor 30,000-foot view of your background.
Yeah, I guess to start, my whole journey started. My mom found a flyer advertising the local racing track when I was 7 years old. And I was just one of those kids who had endless amounts of energy and was bouncing off the wall. Then my mom thought that maybe this would be a good way to help burn some of that energy off. So I tried it, loved it from the very first time I rode. After a few years, I didn't want to do other sports. I just wanted to do BMX. And then at this time, BMX was not the Olympics. I just did it because I loved it. And then in 2005, the International Olympic Committee voted to include BMX racing in the Olympic Games. And we were actually the first action sport that was added to the Summer Olympics, kind of following the successes of snowboarding and half pipe in the Winter Games. The first Olympics that had BMX racing was in 2008. I was 15. I watched it on TV, thought it was the absolute coolest thing that I had ever seen in my life, decided that I really wanted to do it. So I kind of started training more seriously at that point. I'd already been competing and training a little bit, but started taking it really seriously at that point and ended up making my first games in London, 2012. I went in as a favorite. I was actually seeded number 1 in the final. Should have,
Awesome.
for all intents and purposes, should have won, and completely choked in the final race. And it took 7th. And with the Olympics, it's not like you have another one you can try again next week, next month, or even next year. I mean, it's 4 years that you'd have to wait to go again. You have to start the whole process over. You have to qualify again. Like the whole 4 years is a long time. So 4 years later, Rio Olympic Games, I ended up qualifying. Obviously, this is 30,000 foot view. I'm shortening up a lot of things. Made the Olympics, and then I won the Olympics in Rio. Kind of was able to set it right from what happened the first time and what went wrong. I was successful, and I won. I was 23 years old. When I got home from the Olympics, the NBC reporter who had been reporting for Las Vegas, he said, "Hey, let's get lunch." He took me to lunch, and he said, "I've been interviewing you for the past couple weeks at the Olympics, press conferences, all that stuff. You're very well spoken. You have a good presence, and now you have a gold medal. Have you ever thought about keynote speaking?" And I'm 23 at the time, and I'm like, "What's keynote speaking?" And he's like, "Oh, if you craft your story and a message, companies will hire you to come in and share that message." And my reaction was, I don't have to risk my life to get paid because there's an alternative route that doesn't involve broken bones. And so at that point, I started doing a little bit. I started kind of getting into that world with the plans of getting more into it when I was retired from competing, because I was still competing full time. And then the Tokyo Olympics, that was COVID. It was delayed by a year. Everything got kicked back. And then I had a traumatic brain injury. I had an accident with a French rider, broke ribs, collapsed a lung, tore ligaments in my shoulder, tore my bicep, and I had 4 brain bleeds, and I was in a coma. And this all happened on live television. My family wasn't there because it was COVID. Everybody was home. My career ended in a heartbeat. It was done. It was 15 minutes. It was the last race before the medal race, and I was ranked number 1 again. And so in the blink of an eye, I went from in the process of defending an Olympic gold medal to fighting for my life. And 10 days later, I was finally allowed to come home from Japan. I flew home, and then it was over a year of rehabilitation, shoulder reconstruction, brain rehab, the whole thing there. And then I was healed from my accident. And then I had to completely redo my keynote speech because now my story was very different. And that is the 30,000 foot view. Today, I speak all around the country. I'm still very involved in BMX with coaching. I sit on the board of US Cycling. I commentate events for NBC as well as others. And then I also work for a TV show. I host a TV show for PBS. So still keep very busy, do lots of fun stuff, but that is the 30,000 foot view. And let me know where you want to dig in.
Well, certainly an incredible story for sure. First of all, your poor family watching that all from TV.
My mom found the flyer, so this is all her fault.
Yeah, you're right. So it is.
As a mother, don't you dare do that to your mom.
I know. Well, I don't even know what to say after that, but that's quite an inspirational story. Thank God you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned like it obviously took a long time for you to recover, and of course from a physical point of view, but talk about the mental point of view and how you recovered from that.
Yeah, I think it might sound a little bit cheesy, but when you go through a near-death experience, and when there's times when you're not 100% sure that you're either going to be okay or that you'll ever get back to normal, it's really easy to stay positive and to focus on the good and to focus on the fact that I'm here. My brain works properly. I'm having this conversation with you. I have the ability to do pretty much anything that I want to do in this life. that is really easy to focus on rather than focusing on, I almost won the Olympics again, or I trained for 5 years and I didn't get to finish the task, or I had an accident like that on live television. And you Google my name, it doesn't come up that I won the Olympics. The accidents one comes up. If you start getting upset about any of that, it's like, brush it off. It's like, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I'm all good.
It's a great way to feel. I don't think all people would feel that way, though. Right? A lot of people could feel, why me? Why me? I know. Yes.
One of those things where when you're looking at it from like your perspective as somebody who didn't go through that, that makes sense. But everybody that I've spoken to who has had a near-death experience, whether it was a car accident or whatever it may be, everybody that I've spoken to has kind of said the same thing, which is like, it really does shift your perspective. It really does change you. And how could it not? Like, when I woke up from a coma in a hospital bed with no idea how I got there in a foreign country with nobody who spoke English. And it was COVID, so nobody could get in there. And then I had to go months wondering if my brain will ever work properly again. Looking at a crossword puzzle that I should be able to do. No, I should be able to do it, but I couldn't do it. And one of my first exercises was they gave me 3 words: bird, red, table. And then I would have to remember the 3 words and repeat them back, and I couldn't do it. And when that's what you go through, and then now today I'm fully functional and doing everything that I want to do. It's like, when you go through that, how do you not look at the positive and think about what it could have been, as opposed to being like, oh man, I wish I would have gone to my 4th Olympic Games.
It's interesting that you bring that, because I don't understand it. I have not lived that, of course, but I spoke to somebody very recently who recently experienced a devastating trauma that they said her perspective was, I've already lived the thing that I am most scared of, and I don't have any fear anymore in that regard. And that perspective to my life and how to live it has been incredibly freeing. And while it came from tragedy and trauma, I'm inspired about the fact that I can continue to move forward and use this lesson learned to be more fulfilled. Is that like same? Yeah. So I
don't have fear per se.
Yep.
But I have a different perspective. I have the perspective of my brain not working. I have the perspective of thinking what could have been on the other if it went wrong, right? When you have that true perspective, it's easy to focus on the positive. But that's why I said, it's like, anybody who's been to like a really harrowing experience like that, it does change you. It does shift your perspective a little bit.
Absolutely. And now you're kind of living a different kind of high stakes game, right? Like it's you were in the Olympics. You had a very physical way of living your life where it was all on you, your performance and things like that. But now we're on the like business side of things, where now you're inspiring others and telling your story and facilitating these keynotes and different forums to say to people, you can thrive, you can live, you can be resilient. How do you pull from both of those moments or aspects of your life and stay completely locked in and not continue to let pressure get to you? How do you speak to the me and Marias who don't necessarily know what you've gone through, but could still thrive from the experience that you're teaching us about?
I'm going to go on 2 different pathways there. So you talked about pressure. And my perspective on pressure is that pressure just means that you care. And I remember I had an athlete tell me when I started racing pro, and I was young, I was a kid, I was so excited. And he was older, he was like late 20s, 28, 29, right? Which when you're 18 years old, a 29-year-old's ancient. And I remember asking him, like, do you still get nervous? And he said, absolutely. I've been nervous every race I've ever done because I care. He's like, the day that you don't get nervous anymore is the day that you know it's over, because it's the day that you don't care anymore. And that really stuck with me. And so when I do a keynote speech, it doesn't matter if it's the highest paid one I've ever done or if I'm doing a free volunteer one for kids. I get nervous because I care. And that's what it really boils down to. It doesn't matter any of the external factors other than I want to do my best for multiple reasons. One, because I want to help the audience. I want to impact them. But two, I know what I'm capable of and I want to reach my best. I want to do my best work. Right. And I'm sure it's the same when you do a podcast. Like you get off and you're like, I did well today. That was really good. I had a really good flow today. Or you get off and you're like, that wasn't my best work. And it's like, when you get off and it wasn't your best work, it's frustrating because you care. Right. And so that's my view on pressure, is it just means that you care. But really, like what my whole keynote is about is, there's one question that no matter what happens through life, everybody has to arrive at over and over again. And that question is, now what? What do we do now? It doesn't matter. And obviously I use my story to talk about what I've learned and how to answer that question. But you set a goal. Now what do you do? Right? That's something we can all relate to. You come up short on that goal. What do? You achieve that goal. Now what do? You catastrophically fail and everything goes wrong. Now what do? Right? Those are all situations that are a common thread between everybody. Right? And like, while admittedly mine were a little extreme, like my reaching a goal was winning the Olympics, which is not everybody's version of reaching a goal, but you still are met with that same problem of like, okay, I did it. Now what do I do? And I talked in all of those moments, I talked through some of the things that I did and some things that I learned, the mistakes that I made. And I try to empower people to leave with a greater understanding of how to continue moving forward no matter what, but also understanding that it doesn't matter who you are, everybody reaches those moments. Like those moments are a commonality between everybody.
So Connor, when you do your keynote sessions, you mentioned you're speaking to either student athletes or big organizations. How do you tailor them depending on the audience? Or are you talking about the same thing?
It's always a little bit tailored based on who the audience is. And so part of the process is talking to the meeting planner, the CEO, whoever I'm working with, and finding out more about them. What's your mission statement of your company? Or what challenges are you currently dealing with? What is your moment that you guys are facing right now that's making your team think, now what? Just getting to know them a little bit and then figuring out how I can tie it in effectively. I don't ever want it to feel forced. I don't ever want it to not fit. I won't add it just for the sake of adding it. But as an example, one that I can think of off the top of my head that I did recently, I spoke to an athletic department for a school district, and it was all their coaches for all their sports for a school district. And what I spoke on was how when you're an athlete, a professional athlete, every decision that you make matters. And you're never off the job. What you eat, every meal, every night's sleep, every rep in practice. When you're an Olympic athlete, you are 24/7, 365. You're on the job. But I turned that on them and I said, but when you're a coach or a teacher for these young athletes, the same is true. When you're at home, you're off the job. But when you are dealing with them, every interaction that you have, the way that you carry yourself the entire time in front of them, the way that you communicate to these students and these impressionable young men and women, every single day matters. And that was an example of something that I was able to tie in that I believe is accurate, I believe is impactful. And I hope that they leave knowing that when you're on campus and you're working with that group, there's no off moment.
I admire athletes more than probably any group of people just because of the determination that they have. I just finished watching all of March Madness, and it's just unbelievable. Just the way that they just keep playing. In basketball always drives me crazy because you could go down by 10 points in less than a minute so quickly. And then how do you get the resilience? Or how do you get the strength not to give up, especially when these teams are down by 15, 20 points, only a few minutes left? It really is incredible. Like I say to myself, and I hate to say it, and obviously I'm not an athlete, but like I feel like I would say, you know what, there's no chance. And then when you hear the coaches talk afterwards, why did you win? How could you do it? And like, we play till the last second. And you would just assume every team is going to do that. But I'm sure, I mean, that's the difference between winning and losing teams a lot in their mindset.
Yeah, well, I mean, two things. One, I always say that if you wake up in the morning and you say that you want to be the best in the world at something, you're crazy. There's a little something wrong with you. There's a few screws loose, right? And I was around a bunch of Olympic athletes, all different sports, and a lot of great people, right? And really, really like normal people, if that makes sense. But every single one of us, male, female, whatever sport, Paralympics, doesn't matter. Waking up in the morning and your first thought is, I want to be the best in the world at this. That's not like a normal thought. I mean, I guess that is the definition of extraordinary, right? And somebody saying, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to be on a strict nutrition diet. I'm willing to not eat dessert for a year. I'm willing to train for 6 hours a day, 3, 4, 5 days a week, like whatever it is, not normal. But second, to talk on what you're talking about with March Madness, that to me is a culture thing, right? And that culture gets built long before that moment of that game on the last game of the season when they're down 15 points and there's 2 minutes left and they're going to lose. That's not the moment where they turn that on. That has been instilled in those athletes every single moment, just like what I was going back to a second ago. Every moment of every practice from the time that they showed up on that team, that has been instilled in there. And that is a cultural thing where it doesn't matter if we're doing layup drills, doesn't matter if we're up by 20 or down by 20, we're going to play to the final whistle. We're going to work as hard as we can anytime our feet are on the court. And when you instill that culture, you see it in those tough moments. That's when that comes through, is when they're down by 20 or when it's a tie game and some team has to step up. Like those moments are when those 2 minutes are when 2 years of culture building show.
Absolutely right. And it's a good explanation of that because it doesn't just happen in that day when they wake up for that game, but it's just,
if there was a way to
really
follow
impressive.
that,
That would be fantastic.
I mean, I'd be sitting on a yacht somewhere.
Yes,
Right, exactly.
I know. I know for me, I've talked about it many times in these podcasts and, just from my perspective and looking at kind of like resiliency and staying like motivated and mental toughness. I mean, in one hand, running a business, obviously going through a lot of ups and downs in the year. So I believe that the time has made me resilient more so than maybe me reading books. It's just kind of the experience. How do you feel? I know one of the questions I asked in the intro, though, is it something that you just gain after experiencing it? How do you teach somebody to be resilient if they haven't faced it? Or can you?
I think everybody born with the ability to be resilient, and just like anything else, it's something that you have to work on. You look at the most resilient people in the world, it's not like they just woke up, just like talking about that culture. It's not like they just woke up that day and decided, okay, today I'm going to be resilient. But it is a daily decision that you are making to work towards progress, right? And it's just, you want it to just be a linear, gradual move up and becoming more resilient. I think what it really comes down to is if somebody is making an effort to be more resilient, right? If you woke up today and you said, my goal for the next year is to increase my resilience, every single time that you're put into a situation where you have an opportunity to flex that muscle and to work on it. And it could be anything. It could be a situation where your flight gets canceled and your options, you now have a fork in the road, and your option is to lose your mind, freak out and get upset, or to just problem solve, move forward, figure it out. Right. It's like, and like when you make the choice that you want to be more resilient, you look for those forks in the road eagerly, and you continue to take the fork of the more resilient route, and then it compounds, it builds, and then it just becomes your normal capacity. I think realistically, people have different capacities for resilience, right? Like, and I do know there are some studies that I've researched that will go to siblings who grew up in the same home, turned out very differently. Usually it's in like a troubled or a broken home, and they turn out very differently. And they take the sibling who turns out, I guess, okay or turns out better. And they study them to find out if there really is like a resilience gene or if it is something people are predisposed to as to why people in similar situations turned out differently. There's a lot of interesting research to figure it out, but I believe that everybody has a capacity for resilience. Not everybody's capacity is the same. Just the same way that not everybody's capacity for any trait is the same, but everybody can increase theirs and improve theirs. But it just comes down to choosing to want to. It comes down to seeking it out, to putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's where the growth and the improvement happens.
I agree with all of that because I think that going back to what you said with the still performing when you're down by 15 points, like it's something that's been instilled in you. So they're not walking into that moment thinking, what am I going to do when this happens? It's just a natural shift. You keep playing the game. And now instead of coasting, we have to come from behind. But the thing is that fear and self-doubt, even with all of that preparation, is very, very real. And it is about your mindset and how, like what kind of the tools that you have, what you work with to kind of get you past that point. So I'm curious with all of your inspirational talk, like what are the moments where you felt like you were ready to give up, and like how did you deal with that? What was that moment and what changed your mind?
It's funny you say moment because there were lots of moments. I'd say being an elite sport and being at that level, you run at both ends of the spectrum. The highs are high, the lows are low. Right? It's very extreme on both ends of the spectrum. Two things that come to mind is two of the, I guess, the lowest points. When I got my first Olympics, when I choked, I was the number one seed in the pole position. The last thing the NBC commentator said before the event was, I think Fields has got this. My money's on Fields. And I choked. And I crossed the finish line. I go back. I change out of my uniform. And it's all over. It's done. And now what do you do, right? And so a period of depression, when you start realizing how close you were, you realize that it was not anybody else's fault but yours. You blew that. It was all on me. I let my team down. I let my country down. I let my sponsors, my supporters, my parents, my coaches, I let everybody down. And then from there, the question is, how can I believe that if I get back into this position that I won't do it again? And you can't practice that position, right? You get one every 4 years, right? It's not the same as any other event. So yeah, I mean, that was a whole battle with depression, confidence. I started working with a sports psychologist from that point. And even when I dug out of the hole of the depression, there was still that little voice in the back of my head for 4 years that would say, what happens if you get back to this moment? Are you going to mess it up? Are you going to mess it up? Are you doing all this work again just to get to that moment and mess it up? And then that voice didn't stop until after I executed it, right? So, I mean, that was a 4-year process of digging out of that hole. But kind of calling back to what I said earlier, I wanted to dig out of that hole. I wanted to put myself back in that position to get over it, right? That is the resilient thing, is to say, this was the most painful moment of my life, and I'm going to work so hard to put myself right back in that moment again, knowing that there was a chance that it could go wrong. But it was also the only way that I would ever feel good about that again, right? Because if I gave up and the rest of my life I had to live with that moment, it would never go away. So that was the resilient choice, was to put yourself back into that risk position again. Second one that I can think of, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a huge scar on my wrist. On April 1st, 2016, April Fool's Day, I remember, because I told people they didn't believe me. I completely shattered my wrist. I'd have a bone graft, 4 screws put in, and that was 4 months before the Olympics. I missed the Olympic trials. I missed the World Championships. I only made the team on a discretionary nomination. I barely made the team. And I won the Olympics that year. And that was a moment where, when I was sitting in the hospital in April, it was why. I had just done 4 years of work to try to put myself back in this position. Why did this happen to me again? I'm in great shape. I just won the national championships. Everything's going well. Why am I doing this again? And And it's funny because like your first reaction is to think about the why is this happening to me from the athletic point of view? You know, you don't even look at the fact that like my wrist is shattered. Like my body is mangled. And like even today I can't bend my wrist. Like that's as far as I could bend my wrist.
Wow.
But that's
The
like
roller coaster.
and that's an afterthought when you're thinking about the Olympics and everything that you have coming up. But I mean, those were two moments where it would have been very easy to give up. Those were two forks in the road where I think most people would have taken the other fork. I raced the Olympics with a wrist that was so technically broken. I went into surgery after the Olympics to finish fixing it. I knew it was broken. I knew if I hit it again, I was in trouble. But it was like I just worked for 4 years to give myself a chance to move forward and move past this self-doubt and all these things. And I have to try for my mental well-being for the rest of my life. I have to try.
Really amazing story. It's interesting because when you hear of all of these triumphs from sports athletes, sport leaders, Olympic gold medalists, it just sounds so much more of a story of triumph and resiliency
perseverance.
versus somebody running and starting their own company. I hate to say it.
No, I understand what you're saying, but there's a different layer to it. I think
there's-
because that like the uses,
There's a
the
goal you're to
devastating
win, I
loss,
guess.
the goals. Yeah,
Yes.
it's very
It just-
powerful.
so much up and down. I mean, what a roller coaster story
Mhm.
to break your wrist, shatter your wrist, and then actually go and compete and win.
Seeing you do that with your wrist too, that was the wildest thing
Yeah.
I've ever seen. My husband shattered his shoulder when he was playing baseball a long time ago, and he does the same thing, like because his arm doesn't go up all the way. And I'm like, "You're lying. Lift that up." He's just trying to get out of something. Go clean something. No, I'm just kidding.
In your wrist,
Yeah.
you need back. That's what you need.
Yeah.
I have full range back. The only thing I don't have is forward. Now, it's my left hand. My right hand's my basketball hand, so I can shoot a basketball. On your non-dominant hand, there is almost no time that you ever need to rotate it forward. If you think about it, there's nothing that you do that you rotate your wrist to this position.
I've never thought about it, but it's interesting.
It is. What do you do?
Yeah. That's true. What do you do? It's
Literally just to prove a point, right?
Yes.
And they were putting in all the screws. They did so in such a way that would give me the use of it back, which what you need when you're pushing on things, holding things, putting things up. Like there's a lot more time that you need your wrist back. That's how they positioned the screws because they knew that going forward you wouldn't have, but you'll really need it.
So is it the screws that are preventing you from going forward, or is it just like in mobility in its entirety? Like you don't have the tendons to kind of move it that way?
I honestly have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, you get it out. You get it out of the cast. First step is you start doing the range of motion, right? Like that's your first thing in therapy.
Yeah.
No matter what the injury is. But at one point it just stopped. And like that was all it was going.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the human body just in general. It does some crazy things.
And that's also something that like I have more experience in knowing it, but I think that people underestimate just how resilient the human body is and what they can do. And like, I'm going to go on a brief tangent. Again, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. I think that people have no idea what their bodies are capable of because they've never pushed their bodies. And like, I think that if you want to increase mental resilience, one of the best ways to do it is to push yourself physically. To put yourself in a position where you're on the Peloton or you're on the treadmill and you want to stop, but you don't. Like you can literally work your resilience muscles by doing that. And I think like, as elite athletes, you have to do that every single day in practice. So when you get into a situation where you have to be resilient, it's all right, cool. It's Tuesday. I'll be resilient today. Like it's just so normal. And I think that's like, if somebody ever asked me, what should I do for resilience? Work out and really push yourself in your workouts. That will be like one very easy way to increase your resilience outside of the gym.
I agree. You have to be able to tell yourself that you can do something beyond the point that you physically feel you're capable of. I mean, it's how habits are formed. So like I feel that's a foundational kind of thing of just do it, just keep doing it, just keep doing it, just keep doing it, that builds that strength and that resiliency to just be like, this is habitual now. This is a part of me. So I will respond accordingly whenever this comes my way. See, I see it. I see it coming together, this full circle moment here, Connor. So, but failure is a part of all of that. And I think what builds resilience is understanding that failure happens no matter what. Even if you have the best of intentions and everything laid out in front of you, things can go wrong and you got to bounce back from that. But like, do you think that it's your practice that has said to you, I'm going to make failure my motivator, not let it define me? Or what is it in there that said to you that goes beyond resilience, right? That isn't just keep going because I know you can, but rather you lost this time, but that's not going to be the end of the line. Where do you go from there?
I think that from my experience with sport, and I was in an individual sport, not even a team sport. Like you think basketball, right? In March Madness, we were just talking about 50% of everybody on the court that day leaves happy, 50% leave mad. In an individual sport, 3 people, but usually the podium, leave happy. Everybody else leaves mad. And I think that it was just going through the experiences ever since being a little kid of competing, and some days were great and you were happy and on top of the world, and some days you weren't. And learning, developing, a coach called it the roller coaster, but developing the skill of riding the roller coaster and just looking at it as it's a ride and you're going to get back to the beginning, right? You have the ups, you have the downs, you have the loop-de-loops, the corkscrews, you have all that, but you got to stay kind of right. You got to come back to the very spot where you started. And with elite sport, if you race 15 times a year, 5 of them might be amazing, 5 might be okay, 5 might be terrible. And if after every time that you have a terrible event, you're miserable for the next month, that's a long time of the year that you're going to be miserable, right? And so it was basically just developing the skill of letting things go, staying more neutral, being more analytical and logical of like, this is what I did well, this is what I did poorly, this is what I need to improve on for the next one. And trying to control my emotions, I guess is the best way to put it. And you're always going to be emotional when you care, especially when your life is dedicated to something, but learning how to control those emotions to where they don't become detrimental, I think was really important. But outside of sport, how I look at that in life is Amazon trucks here. My dog hates the Amazon truck.
We understand. We both have dogs. Yes.
You know how to do that outside of sport. It's just about moving forward. Like no matter what, win, lose, fail, whatever it is, I just focus on continuing to move forward. Whatever it is I'm working on, whatever it is I'm trying to do not become stagnant. Do not backslide. Just keep moving forward.
I like what you said as far as I like everything you said, but I like the part too about analyzing and actually looking to see what happens, not from an emotional perspective, but from a factual perspective. And that's really interesting. And I know I could look at the analogy of athletes because they're always watching tape, right? So after games, they're sitting there and they're watching hours of tape, and that's what makes them be able to look and see what they can do to improve. Like from the business world, it's interesting because we don't often have that time to go like look at tape. Like we probably have to look at like learning another methodology of going and dissecting everything that could have went wrong. I know we have like recap meetings, but we probably could do a better job in that. Just interesting.
Having a different form of evaluation.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's important because when you do it like that, it takes away the guesswork. It takes away the emotions. It goes strictly to logic. Where was the company weak? Where was the team weak? Where was the company strong? Where was the team strong? Cool. Let's continue doing the things that went well. Let's address where we need to address. Now we have a plan. Now we have accountability. Now at the next meeting, we can analyze whether or not we made the necessary changes. And it keeps everything in very black and white, whether or not you did it.
I agree. I think I could learn a lot from that because I think I do look at it a lot, even though I try a lot from an emotional perspective of I screwed up. I didn't do a good job there. like this sucks versus, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? I end up waking up the next day and going forward. And in the back of my mind, I have learned it, but I haven't like deliberately spent enough time analyzing what happened and what could be done again.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it's the mindset too. It's very easy to just stop when you feel like you've had enough. And so I mean, you are in control. Nobody else can tell you to, I mean, I can tell you to keep going, but you have to actually do it. Like, words don't mean much over the action, even if you are the one like speaking the speak. Once you do it is when you start learning. So I like that no matter what it is, Connor, like it's a just keep going. You have to tell yourself to keep going, because you know when you can't anymore. You know when you can't anymore, and what does that look like? You don't know until you try. I think that there's some
that exact sentence that you just said back into what we were talking about on the treadmill.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Keep going until you can't. Keep telling yourself to keep going until you can. And it's like, that's why I'm really big on pushing yourself physically, because I think that translates into having the ability to push yourself mentally.
I agree. Yeah, because if you know what your brain what your body just accomplished because your brain told you you could, where's the limit? Yeah. Where it doesn't exist. Mean Girls reference, anyone? No. Okay.
Glenn Coco.
Fabulous, Connor. So for those, I mean, we love to turn this around. I mean, this is a learning and development podcast, but something that we always bring it back to is the human piece, that whether there are corporate leaders listening to this or individual contributors who are saying like, this is something I'd love to bring my team, or this is something I would love for my company to know about. Somebody is listening out there that's maybe in a tough spot, that is really resonating with what you're saying, or has had a major setback, feels stuck in a way. What's piece of advice number one from Connor to say, this is how you get up and move forward, and this is what I want you to do from point A?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so many. It's like, how do you pick one? At the risk of sounding like cheesy, the piece of advice just comes down to, it's one day at a time. And, when I do my presentation, sometimes, depending on what the audience is looking for, what my goal is, sometimes I bring up this image, and the image is of a calendar date. And I say, we know when the Olympics is, and I know I have to be ready. This is on this day. Then I zoom out. I say on this month. Then I zoom out on this year. Then I zoom out again, and there is a 4-year calendar there with a little red target at the end. And I say, that is what life looks like for an Olympic athlete, is it's 4 years down the road. You have to embody that, taking it one day at a time. Otherwise, it becomes overwhelming. And 3 years before the Olympics, you are not in shape to go compete at the games. Like, you're not ready, right? Like, there is a plan laid out for this 4 years, but you have to follow it every single day. And the plan of every day is different. And the plan of every year is different, right? There's always different cycles and things that you're doing, right? This year might be about technical work. This year might be about physical work. This year might be about competition. Like, there's all these things, but you stick to the plan one day at a time, and you build that house brick by brick, right? And every day is a brick. And then you get to the end and you've got this beautiful house built because you invested in every single brick. You did every single day. So my piece of advice would be, no matter what your goal is, no matter what you're looking for out of you, your team, your company, your personal goal, whatever it is, one day at a time. And if you follow that, and if you do that, you look back after a month, you look back after 6 months, you look back after a year, and you stacked all those days, and you really can make some progress. But last I'll say, I like analogies. It's like, you get a pizza, you order a nice pizza. You can eat the whole pizza in one bite? No, you cut it into slices, and you eat one slice or one bite of each slice at a time. And then before you know it, you've eaten the pizza. And I think people look at a project, they look at a goal, they look at the whole pizza, and they think, how am I going to do this? Instead of realizing that you cut it into pieces, and then you cut those pieces into pieces. and that's how you achieve anything great.
I love that analogy. We've also never seen us eat pizza, so but you are right. That's exactly what it is. Everything is a puzzle piece, and some of them are 25 pieces with SpongeBob on the front, and then other ones are 1,500, and the top of the puzzle is a reflection of the bottom. So which one goes where, you'll never figure it out, but it is, you have to find the way the pieces all click together and take your time. I love your analogies. I love your story. And I appreciate that you have very simple things that tie it back to real life, because that's how the connections are made. That's how the connections are made.
Yep.
I agree. Very good analogies.
Mm-hmm. So, listen.
Love a good analogy.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, with analogies and athleticism, I hope you're ready for the Olympic style race I'm about to put you in, which is the TTA 10. So, Connor, are you ready for that part of our episode?
I'm ready, and I'm going to set a goal to beat 90 seconds.
Madam, baby. I love it. David, music, please.
It's the TTA 10 final questions for our guest.
All right, Connor. So we talked about this in the beginning. Every one of our dedicated listeners know what's going on. This is the TTA 10. So I'm going to ask you 10 more playful questions, rapid fire. Answer them as quickly as possible. There are technically right answers, but there are no wrong answers, because we're here for the fun of it all. So David's going to put 90 seconds on the clock. And are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, David, 90 seconds, please.
90 seconds on the TTA 10 clock begins now.
All right, Connor, are you an early bird or a night owl?
I know.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Lit, my own worst enemy.
If you could instantly master any skill overnight, what would it be?
Speaking different languages.
You're stranded on a desert island. What 3 items are you hoping came with you?
Gym equipment, cell phone so I can stay in touch with my friends, and a chef.
Okay. Would you rather always have to sing instead of speak, or dance instead of walk?
I'm a terrible singer, so I'll dance.
What fictional character would you most like to live in a day in the life as?
Superman.
What's the weirdest food you've ever tried and actually liked?
Escargot.
What's your favorite bad movie that you will defend as a good one forever?
Step Brothers.
What is 6 plus 2?
6 plus 2 or 6 times 2?
6 plus 2. Did he?
Yes, he did
hear?
answer
Okay,
it.
sorry.
Yes, he did.
I didn't
Yes.
hear. I'm sorry.
No.
How much is that doggy in the window?
I can't what?
How much is that doggy in the window? Riddle.
Symbolic.
It's symbolic. Anything.
Any
How
dog.
much is that doggy in the window?
$1 bajillion. My dog's not for sale. I was thinking of my dog. My dog's not for sale.
Where? Who has a dog here? I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, David, listen, with a very chaotic ending, that's the 10 questions. So let's give Connor and me a little bit of a break on that one and get the verdict. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we got to calculate the scores and just subtract for all of Jocelyn's weirdness that she injected into the thing. So
Listen, I bring my authentic self.
a total of 84 seconds.
Woo!
He was not his own worst enemy. He is a winner. Congratulations, Connor.
Right.
And we do have a special treat for Connor, a video salute. And hopefully it captures a little of what his journey was like, and hopefully in the style of a ballad of his beloved heavy metal music. Let's take a listen to the following.
He was just a kid with a dream and a wheel, chasing thunder on a two-wheeled steel. From the desert sun to Olympic gold, with a heart so fierce and a spirit bold.
I didn't realize this was heavy metal.
When we
Power
It's
ballad.
not yet.
place, but he heard the call. 4 years later, he touched the flame with a gold medal and a brand new name. Now what? He screamed to the sky when the world shook and he couldn't fly. From glory's light to darkest night, he faced the fall, but not the fight. He rose again through pain and fire, fueled by heart and pure desire. Connor Fields, you showed us all the might it takes to rise from the fall. Tokyo dreams turned to shattered ground in the blink of a wheel, no cheering sound. A crash so cruel it stole the light, but he battled back with all his might. He could have stayed down, called it the end, but he chose to live, to rise, to mend. Now he rides for a different race, coaching hope with a fearless face. Now what? The question he knew when the medals fade and the crowds are few. When you lose the thing that made you whole, you find your fire in a brand new soul. He speaks with power, he rides with grace, a legend, not just of the race. Connor Fields, you showed us all the might it takes to rise from the fall.
There you go.
Whoa.
That was awesome. And it was more Bruno Mars than heavy metal.
That was a
It
power
was-
It
ballad.
part
didn't
of our
sound like it
conversation.
either.
Come on. You
That was not Bruno Mars, and that was
Hey,
not
Bruno,
heavy metal.
David.
Real quick, on the karaoke song, part of why I love that as my karaoke song is because that song is beloved. Everybody knows it.
Yes.
You start doing it, and the whole crowd always jumps in.
You don't have to do anything. Yeah.
Please tell me why.
So good. Oh man, I
God.
can't. Oh man, Josh Groban does heavy metal. That was great.
Yeah. I don't know
Oh.
if Connor's going to want to use that as his theme
Yeah,
song
we
when
usually
he walks
offer.
in. Yeah, to keynote speaking. I don't know if that's going to pump up the audience.
It was a
They might be
power
running
ballad.
out.
Every heavy metal band has its power ballad. Come on.
Okay,
Sure.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I was excited for some.
What was
heavy-
Black Sabbath? Crazy Train though. I'm just kidding.
No. Ozzy had a song called No More Tears. That was a ballad.
Yeah, it's good.
All right.
Okay,
Would
well,
you like to
thank you
thank
so much, Connor. This was
Connor, this was so
amazing,
much fun.
incredible.
Thank
You're
you.
an
Appreciate it.
incredible human being. I
Mhm.
mean, unbelievable
Mhm.
to have you on here and just to learn your story,
Yes.
your incredible journey. So thank you so much for sharing it with us and our audience.
Thank you.
For more information on how to thrive under pressure and build resiliency in your organization, visit us at thetrainingassociates.com. We'll see you later.